Tax lovers unite. This is part 2 of the rant against the fair tax. And of course it's a spoof for all those of you who don't get it. Criminals who operate completely on the idea of non-contribution, something for nothing, will now be forced to contribute to the society like everyone else when they buy new things. Is criminal activity going to be worth the risk if criminals pay taxes just like the average Joe? I don't know if the criminal psyche can deal with this, not to mention putting a lot of good cops and prison guards out of work. I'm sure you see the seriousness of the threat and why we need to stop this consumption tax movement before it ruins everything. Crashing prices. Another argument that is made in favor of consumption tax is that the current income tax system is higher prices for consumer goods and services because of the tremendous tax compliance costs that end up being added into the prices of things. It isn't uncommon for compliance costs to exceed the tax, but since companies have to charge us for all their expenses, those taxes and compliance costs are factored into their pricing. Well, that is what is so fabulous about the present-day tax system. These costs are hidden. No one even thinks about them. No one even knows about them. You can't see them. We don't know we're being charged. With a consumption national sales tax, it will all be right there in the open. Every time you buy something, the fair tax will show at the bottom of your receipt. You'll be aware of exactly how much tax you're paying. A lot of people will be upset by this. They will start to complain. They will demand that Congress stop spending so much. They'll insist on an ending to the pork. This is like asking the government to stop breathing. Untaxing the poor. Now you need to be alert for arguments from the other side. For example, here's a direct quote issued by one of their propaganda outlets. To ensure no American pays tax on necessities, the Fairtax plan provides a prepaid monthly rebate for every registered household to cover the consumption tax spent on necessities up to the poverty level. This, along with several other features, is how the fair tax completely untaxes the poor, lowers the tax burden on most, while making the overall rate progressive. Okay, there you have it in their own words. The fair tax completely untaxes the poor. They call that progressive? Today, poor people, like everyone else, pay an average of 25%. Actually, it ranges from 20 to 30%, sometimes 40% or more, in federal taxes and compliance costs whenever they buy something new. This will totally remove that privilege. It's always the poor, isn't it, who get the short end of the stick. The rich get to pay nearly all the taxes because they buy so damn much. Now that's discrimination. My God, people, I hope you're getting this. We tax lovers are on the verge of a terrible catastrophe if this anti-income tax legislation goes through. I'm sorry, it's important not to panic here. If this fair tax thing passes, people could get the idea that it would work on the state and local levels. Can you imagine states funded totally by sales tax rates, not much greater than those being paid now? Real estate taxes would disappear. All kinds of taxes and fees that we enjoy paying today would become a thing of the past. We need to nip this consumption tax thing in the bud. The answer to these arguments, of course, is the pure beauty of the income tax system, which you, my fellow tax lover, can completely appreciate. I must admit, it gives me chills of pleasure just thinking about it. Here it is. A consumption tax is an old-fashioned idea. That was how our government was funded for the first 140 years, which was why an amendment to the Constitution had to be passed to legalize the great system we have now. When you hear the term consumption tax, think about colonial America, horses and buggies. The income tax is newer. It wasn't legalized until just before World War I. With an income tax, every working person in the country pays taxes in proportion to how much he or she earns, except criminals, tax dodging, rich people, illegal aliens, tax cheats, etc. Earnings are more or less based on production. The more a person produces, or the better his product or service is, the more a person earns. The more a person earns, the more a person is taxed. To the tax lover, this is joy. To the person who doesn't appreciate taxation the way we do, this is looked upon as punishing hard work and production. They make the analogy of a football team whose star running back gets fined every time he advances a ball or scores a touchdown. Can you imagine? They have a problem with this. But wait, there's more. Not only do successful producers pay more taxes, they spend countless hours each year keeping records and compiling data and studying IRS information in anticipation of filing their annual tax return. Most hire tax accountants to interpret the 7 million word tax code. The tax code is so complicated that even the best consultants get it wrong. The tax code is so complicated that even the best consultants get it wrong half the time. If you give the same set of tax information to 10 different IRS agents, they will suggest that 10 different tax returns should be filed. People spend only 6 billion man-hours of their own time on all of this. In fact, it is estimated that it costs taxpayers $225 to $250 billion a year for advice on tax return preparation, tax record keeping, and tax reduction. When it comes to businesses, the time and money spent on this process is huge. Before making a major financial move, people and businesses have to investigate and consider the tax ramifications. For tax lovers like us, doing all that is a work of love. This Fairtax proposal will eliminate all that. It's true that these business expenses are passed on to the consumers in the form of higher prices, and some complain about that, but they're just not looking at the big picture and forgetting the joy of paying tax. When our prices are high, people around the world cannot afford to buy our products. Our prices are not competitive. This helps countries like China and India take over the world markets. That's why American companies have been shipping our product lines overseas. And that is why American investors and companies have been investing overseas so much. There is said to be $11 trillion of American investment money overseas now. That means fewer jobs for us and more for them. Hey, what are unemployment lines for anyway? Do you see how beautifully this all works? And these consumption tax types want to change all that? They'll completely eliminate the time and expense of federal taxes and tax compliance that individuals and businesses face. Prices of American products will go down, making us more competitive in world markets and creating more American jobs. Do you really want to live in a country where everyone works? I don't think so. Needless to say, I hate and despise these Fairtax people. But don't despair. We can defeat them if we just explain to others the incredible logic of our position. Here's to the status quo!